And I was so gung ho about this in group of transgender individuals where I had received reciprocity, connection, a feeling of affiliation and belonging. It had gone through the process of community building at lightning speed. I went from extrinsic reward, look at my pictures, to intrinsic value. I have now discovered a yes, and I want to explore more within a minute, a Google search.
Hey there, Niiamah Ashong here, founder of Outlier's Edge. I'm in a space right now and in a conversation with an amazing outlier who understands the interrelation between people and communities and how we can like uplift each other and uplift like the community as a whole in order to be with each other, but also to accomplish great things together. So, Fenia Logan, I am really honored and pleased to be in conversation with you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
One of the things that about you that really strikes me is that from not only do you show up as a leader in the spaces that you're in, but like you are both incredibly well versed in the subject matter that you lead, but like there's also like a continuity of you that is both refreshing and inspiring, and also like, and I say this in like for me, it's a really good thing, intimidating. You know what you're about, and it really feels like in every conversation, every experience I've had with you, like you're in alignment with that. It's unapologetic, and it's also just natural.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I accept those words wholeheartedly. I do like what you say about being intimidated as like this notion of being a very good thing. I've heard I'm intimidating before. I think this is going to change the way that I look back on a lot of those relationships.
But when that moment happened, someone said to me, "He's like, even your joy is intimidating." And at
Oh,
that moment,
wow.
I got it.
This conversation honestly reminds me a lot of my own personal growth. I'm a transgender woman, and as a male, there was nothing about my life that I really enjoyed necessarily because I wasn't me, right? But I did have some privileges, you know? So when I came out and I transitioned publicly, my school wouldn't allow me to use the female restroom. They actually pulled me into the HR room and they're like, listen, we understand your rights as a transgender individual, but you're in Wyoming. Like, there's rights, and then there's the culture willing to give you those rights. And if you want those rights, it's your job to advocate for and change the culture of those rights on the university. My rights are my rights. It doesn't matter whether or not people know. It's your job to reinforce those rights, you know? But I kind of went overboard as a result of that conversation, and I went onto a YouTube channel. I say this lovingly in an academic factor. I call it the bitch phase, where when you, as a transgender individual, come into your own and come into your identity in your space, it's such an intense experience. You are doing every single step of the way consciously with practice. You are working on your voice every single day of every single second. You are choosing to dress in specific ways in order to highlight or to lowlight specific traits that you genuinely, really internally hate about yourself or love about this new identity of you. And as a result, you build this hyper competitive, hyper defensive, almost motherly feeling about yourself, where the slightest provocation causes a response that to everyone else is way overboard. And they should, rightly so. And a lot of people are like, you're going to lose a lot of friends and family if you're following through with this. And it's like, right. But they're also in the midst of learning who they are.
I picked it up as like two things. Let me see if I was getting it right. One was that in a like there was one part of it is like I'm here to be powerful, but the way that you describe it, at least using the word bitch phase on it, like like it feels like it was like I'm actually a little bit more forceful than powerful. And the second part that I got from that was like while you're in the practice of all these things, like it was messy. Yet while it's fun to be able to say, you should show up every day exactly as you, and like let's see how we can turn that into something real. You're speaking about the real part of the process, which is like, look, I am a giant, And like along the way, I crushed some towns, you know?
The way that we think and the way that we learn who we are as people is really a very, very simple process. And it's called learning schema theory. And a schema is essentially a set of differences that we use as effectively logic gates, yes or no, in order for us to learn who we are over time. So, and I'm going to use trans people here in this experience as well. This also occurs among virtually every minority culture. This is in large part how like individuals learn who they are not. And effectively, learning schema theory begins with an object. You have a car, right? And then you can know whether or not that car is a Ford or a Mazda. And then once you know it's a Ford, you can know whether or not it's a Colorado or a Focus. There's this internal system in your brain that says yes, no, or let's learn more. And it's that let's learn more that's really, really critical. If you apply this now to who you are as a person. In judo, when I went in, my brain didn't say, do I like judo? It said, you have to like judo. And it was an immediate, no, this isn't me, but I have to do it now. And suddenly it becomes a chore, a responsibility, something that is external to me. I've already decided that for my identity, the yes, no schema, is this something that I enjoy, is a solid no. And because my father set me down this path, this schema of learning all of that, everything in my environment from that point forward was always no. Nothing in my identity said yes. And as a result, I was lost. I had no idea what I was. I had no idea who I was. I didn't get exposed to the things that I enjoyed or the things that I loved. I just had to do my best to fit in an environment where I had zero yeses. Identity fits that way all the time. And just imagine how messy it is once you have a teenager or a kid who has never actually gotten a yes, never gotten to explore it. How messy is it going to be the second they do find that yes?
There are a few things that are going on as you're saying that. One, it's like there's a lot that's being repressed in like the no world, right? And as you're saying that, I'm also thinking about like, oh, like how did that show up for me? But how am I learning from this schema? Like where I'm consistently putting myself in places of no's, rather than giving myself a chance to explore the yeses. So I'm playing with some of that as you're talking right now. You then took you through years of navigating a no environment. And then so take us here. You left us kind of like an open space. Of like imagine what it'd be like to like reach like your teenage years and reach that.
When you don't find no's, your emotions will tell you, and you will start to build this notion of feeling restless, feeling like you just can't remain in this skin. And then it's that notion of travel and loss that forges you to find those yeses. And if you follow that notion, you're going to take yourself to places you never imagined you could. If you're living in a structured organization of no's, the only way for you to find that yes now is for you to leave the environment where all you're getting are no's. So for me, taking refuge in online forums I really should not have been on. 4chan, 99chan, 8chan, precursors to Reddit. I took solace in online communities where being a transgender individual was permissible, even if unacceptable. For some reason, my brain is telling me this is a yes. So I took some time to go learn about that. And over time, I realized this wasn't a sexual thing. I would cross dress, I would get dressed in female clothes to live my life, to mop the floors, to like do laundry, to read books, to do my homework. It was just natural. And I went onto that forum and I asked, like, this is what I'm going through. I disclosed to other people and I'm like, what is this? What's going on? And I got this post that said, you're not a crossdresser. Like, you're just straight up trans. And I looked at them and I'm like, what is this term right now? What happened? I Google it, I see the definition, brain inside of me, yes. And the second I got that yes, that was the moment the bitch phase started. because I was so covetous of this term, this definition. And I was so gung ho about this in group of transgender individuals where I had received reciprocity, connection, a feeling of affiliation and belonging. It had gone through the process of community building at lightning speed. I went from extrinsic reward, look at my pictures, to intrinsic value. I have now discovered a yes, and I want to explore more within a minute, a Google search. And it was that notion of yes that sent me on this tirade that said, so my entire environment that I've lived in has all been no's. Let's just start tearing it all out. And I use the word tearing rather specifically. Like, I completely changed my life. I planned for every step of the way. I was highly intentional with designing a life that no longer included any of those no's in it, without any regard for whether or not those no's carried a value.
I love that you're intentional in your words. It really opens up a world for me in terms of like places that we can navigate, places we can go, and not being afraid of like losing something in the short term to allow yourself to go on the path that you need to go on, and then choosing to see where that path decides to take you, or if you want to come back and pull back some things that were left behind. So I'd be really curious about any
Yeah.
thoughts you have on that.
Um, I think in truth, it boils down to something very, very simple. Um, a lot of the reasons people struggle to rebuild bridges they burned is because they are not ready to accept the fact that a reckoning has very little to do with the person they hurt and everything to do with not letting themselves feel said reckoning. I lost an entire family for 7 years. It wasn't just a breakup, it was, you are no longer my father. All of my family members no longer believe that I am worth anything, so they threw me away, until I reached a moment where I was able to have this conversation of like, hey, listen, this is a completely new person here, totally new identity. But I also recognize that that person before existed and hurt you like really bad. And that level of discomfort did not allow me to say the things I needed to say. So the main tool that I used to fix this is radical candor. I cannot mitigate my words. Tears need to flow. Time needs to stop. We need to sit in this moment right now. They could go the radical candor route, but it takes practice. It takes learning how to do that, how to have those skills.
So I appreciate you today sharing more about you and your process, and I feel it's just so relatable in terms of like just like the process of choosing an identity. Tell us about what you do in the world. Tell us about like whatever you'd like to share yourself from a professional standpoint or personal standpoint, and then we'll wrap up from there.
I built a company that is based on this actually, called socially constructed online, which is a consultancy first, where I help people build online communities that attract audiences to them, and then galvanize those audiences into communities that will keep those organizations running, not as an umbrella or someone to control that community, but as a node, a resource in that community to help them thrive.
Benia, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm looking forward to seeing more about seeing you in more spaces, going out to socially constructed online and playing with you and collaborating and beyond with that. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for bringing it out here, and thank you for like living on your edge and bringing that into our space here.